everyone, and welcome to another installment of TED Excellence, where everything's made up and the points don't matter. And I come to you live from my Corona bunker on the moon with Dogcat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to Thursday. Terrifying Thursday. Yes, we return once again to the wonderful world of off-brand TED Talks for fun and enjoyment. I call it funjoyment. But before we get into tonight's subject matter for our second installment of Superpowers Month, who's joining me for this adventure? Jaeger Pony, hello. St. Jimmy for the win, hello. Funtime Bats, hello. Mike R, hello. Derek LaRue, hello. Marchgrave, Tear of the Iron Hills, hello. Akiver Dam, hello. Who else is here? Oh, and then chat jumped because of course it did. Let me go back up a little bit here. P Square Peon, hello. Shell D, hello. The Useless Cook, hello. Let's see, did I already say Ryan R? If I didn't say Ryan R, was it Mike R or Ryan R? There's so many R's around here. You R's. You're a weird family. Ryan R, hello. Jonathan Peterson, hello. Bridget, hello. Keldrig, hello. Derek LaRue, thank you so much. Derek, you got a haircut. Oh my gosh, you're looking dapper. So clean cut, so appropriate. Thank you so much, Derek, for your continuing support and generosity. Thank you so much. I appreciate that very much. Hope you're doing well. Divine Petulance, hello. Emperor W.R. Costin, hello. Blake Star, hello. Roan Harrison, hello. Roger Reynolds, hello, if I didn't already say hello. Attack Alpaca, hello. So many of you. Oh my gosh, my brain's overflowing with people. That sounds kind of weird, doesn't it? Okay, I hope I got everybody. If I missed you, if you're lurking, if you're in the future, hello, and possibly hello, if I haven't recognized you for some reason, to any of the visitors from the Dave's Lemonade sphere of existence. I appreciate everybody's very kind and generous support of the stream I did with Dave's Lemonade the other day, and the ridiculously complimentary reactions to it. So there will be another one, even again, featuring Dave's Lemonade and other guests, currently scheduled for March 11th. I guess I gave that away, huh? I said last time I wouldn't talk about who the guests were going to be until I got closer to the date. But as of right now, at least, Dave's Lemonade and Stay Awake are scheduled to appear on the next Living on Borrowed Crime. But enough of my self-promotion. We wouldn't want to do that here. This is for education and fun. Or sorry, enjoyment and fun. Yes. So tonight, the second installment of Superpowers Month, ADHD and Creativity, a superpower with Kryptonite. I picked this, now, to full disclosure here, there are many TEDx's out there with titles that are similar to the statement, ADHD is my superpower. Some of them are literally that title. So I had a lot to choose from. But the tiebreaker here, or breakers, I guess, because there's more than one, is first off, the title suggests a bit of a balance, that there might be something to, consider in the alternative of it being a complete positive ADHD. And I like the suggestion of there being two sides to the examination. A superpower with Kryptonite. So that was the first part. The second one was, of the ones that I looked at least, as far as I can tell, this is the only one that had a TEDx disclaimer on it, that it falls outside their guidelines or something. And that's always a good sign for an entertaining TEDx. So there you go. One other editorial note, well, not editorial note so much, the audio on this presentation. So the first minute or two, I'm not quite sure how long, it sounds like you're sitting in an auditorium listening to somebody. It's very echoey. It's very distant. Somewhere shortly thereafter, fingers crossed, they do get the microphone working and it turns into a regular TEDx audio. So we might have to strain a little bit in the opening to hear the guy, but it eventually does clear up completely and sounds fine. But that's an issue on the recordings part and not on my part, just for edification purposes there. I see anything else I want to add. Oh yeah, bingo card is B tonight. Bingo card B as in boy. I have no creativity myself tonight. Links are in the description. If you'd like to join in on the poll that selects the bingo card each week for TED Excellence, be sure to follow me on Twitter @scribe_light right there on the screen and in the description. Anything else I want to add to sound like I'm an actual professional or something at this? I guess. Oh, yeah. At the top of the chat box, if you will, at some point, pay attention to the fundraisers posted there. Thank you, Keeverdam, to our friends Moonshock and Angry Illinoisian. They both have experienced some medical catastrophes recently, and they and their friends and family could certainly use your assistance if you have it. If you can't donate, and it's understandable, if you can share those links out on social media, that as well would be appreciated. Okay, did I get everything? I have everything. Kay Scholl, hello. Nathaniel Rotskull, hello. Jamie Milquist, hello. And I think that's everyone I can see. Again, I feel bad if I missed anybody, but if I did, I hope you are well. All right. With that all being said, let's get into it. ADHD as a superpower with Kryptonite. This clocks in at just about 11 and a half minutes. I'll start off with a few seconds for a sound test. Again, the opening audio from the recording is kind of sketchy, but it does clear up eventually. Hopefully quicker than longer, but we'll find out together. All right, here we go.
So, a couple of years ago, my son was going through my Netflix profile.
Your son was going through your Netflix profile. Okay. Does everybody hear that? Again, can't do anything about the quality quite yet, but does that come through okay? Can hear it, says Mike R. Hear it, says Advocatus Diaboli. All right. So your son was going through your Netflix. Well, hopefully it wasn't going through your search history as well.
And he saw a whole bunch of shows that I'd only watched for like less than 5 minutes each.
That's most Netflix shows, honestly. I mean, the quality is just outstanding.
And he looked at me and he said, "Dad, you're ADHD as fuck."
Whoa! Now, that is a naughty word to say to your father. I mean, how old was your kid again? Did I miss this part?
As it turns out, he was right.
Honestly, I don't think just watching 5 minutes of a Netflix show and deciding this isn't worth my time is necessarily indicative of ADHD, because most of Netflix's content is only worthy about 5 minutes of attention, but whatever.
Just last year, I was indeed diagnosed with having attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Aha.
And after I got that diagnosis, I said, well, shit, that sure explains a lot. So
it's almost like confirmation bias. Maybe.
Growing up, I always hated gym class.
Uh-huh.
And I hated all my other classes too.
So it wasn't that special, was it? Okay, well, anyway, let's go over to the bingo card real quick, because we already have a square to circle. Excuse me while I clear my throat for a second. There we go. Maybe now I won't sound like I'm about to hawk up something. All right, over to the bingo card, because we have a childhood or family anecdote. So circling that on the bingo card. Let's go over the bingo card one more time. Remember, it's bingo card B. Links are in the description. Anecdote that probably never happened. We'll wait and see. Self-vilification or wretchedness. We'll see. Systemic or institutional. Weightless example. Word salad. Leaves out vital context. Collectivizes own demographic. White supremacy. A list. Privilege. Sales pitch for product or service. Plays victim. We'll see. Attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase. Not yet. Wage gap. No. Patriarchy. Feminism. Mind reading or assumes motives. Diversity, equity, and or inclusion. Marginalized or marginalization. Argumentative non sequitur, which is a bit abstract, but we find our examples. Contradicts own point or argument. Benevolent condescension. And lastly, microaggressions or unconscious bias. So far we have childhood or family anecdote. I'm going to circle free space because, well, free is a good price. And let's continue.
But at least I could daydream through those. But it's kind of hard to fantasize about being a superhero or slaying dragons.
Whoa.
You got a dodgeball coming at your head at 80 kilometers an hour.
Okay, there we go. I thought the video failed. Okay, so the picture blacked out for a second. Now we have good audio. Okay, so you hated all your classes in school. Okay, so you were a normal kid, and you can only stand watching Netflix shows for about 5 minutes a pop, like most of the country. Okay, that still counts as a view for Netflix's numbers, and they can say, look how many views we got on our programming. Let's justify dumping and burning millions more dollars on a Resident Evil reboot or whatever.
So I was not a good student.
Uh-huh.
I was definitely not an athlete.
Mhm.
But later on, I actually got a couple master's degrees and ended up being a pretty popular fitness writer. So it's kind of funny how that worked out.
Yeah, it is funny how that worked out. So despite your lack of academic attention and success, you still led a fairly successful career, sounds like. Huh. How is that possible if you can't concentrate on anything?
But the transition toward that success was anything but smooth.
Welcome to life.
Because, growing up, I was bullied.
So was I.
Told I was lazy.
I mean, on the worst days and interactions with my father, perhaps.
Stupid.
No, I never really had that. Really.
A loser.
I had that a lot.
A lot of it had to do with being part of a school system that put a lot of emphasis on sustained attention and memorization.
Oh, yeah. Paying attention and, learning things. Yeah. Schools. What can I tell you?
Which are things that people with ADHD aren't real good at. And it kind of messes with your self-esteem.
Sure.
So I could not wait to be done with school. And after high school, I went out and I worked a variety of different jobs and didn't really like that very much either.
Yeah. Okay. I know. This is for just as a preamble. This is not me acting like ADHD or people that have different attention spans or things like that. It doesn't exist or something. But I'm always a little wary of backwards retroactive assessment of one's behavior or otherwise with a very convenient diagnosis. Now, I don't know what testing he went through to verify this. I do not even know. I'll be completely honest. I don't even know how you test for this to affirm that someone has it. Maybe he'll tell us. But all the same, to find out at this late in life, a year prior to this talk, that he's been diagnosed with something and then, now it all makes sense. Like, a little off.
So after a couple of years, I said, oh, fuck it. I'll go to university.
This has got to be the bluest TEDx I've ever heard. I've never heard so many swear words in a TEDx talk before. I don't think so. Is this usual, guys? I don't recall this. Not to say that TEDx has to be G-rated or something, but still, okay.
And I went to university. I gave that a try, and I promptly began failing. But then,
why?
There was a life-changing encounter.
No. Why did you begin failing? What was it due to your now assessed ADHD, or it could be many things? Like, okay.
You familiar with those romantic movies, kind of cheesy movies?
Somewhere in Time. Guys, if you ever want to sit down and have like the most cuddly, weepy, romantic experience with your partner, so the movie Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour. I cannot more highly recommend a tearjerker romantic comedy / adventure, whatever you want to call it, with a time travel twist. That's the romantic movie I always think of first when it comes to romantic movies.
Where there's a guy, he's kind of a fuck up.
Jesus.
And there's this incredible woman who enters his life, and it changes his life.
Yes.
Some people watch those movies and they go, oh. Other people watch those movies and they go, barf.
Yeah.
I won't say which one I am.
I think you just did.
Anyway, there was this incredible woman,
and
she changed my life.
It was your mother. No?
She was a straight A student.
Oh.
She wanted to go to medical school. And I thought, I was deeply in love with her. And I was worried that if I didn't get my shit together and stop flunking out of university, that it wasn't going to work out. So
necessity is the mother of invention.
I suddenly became very motivated to become a man that she could be proud of.
Oh.
And fortunately, right around that time, I took a history class with this very dynamic and engaging professor. And I was just enraptured. And I realized I have found my thing. And I took every history course that they would let me. And I worked really hard and I did well. I ended up getting a master's degree in it.
Wow.
So what's this got to do with ADHD?
I don't know. It says something to me more of you're not much of a self-starter, or you were experiencing some, lack of, I don't know, self-confidence or self-motivation. You needed an outside stimulus in order to get your motor going, so to speak. Yeah, but okay, I don't know. You tell me.
Well, ADHD is a reward deficiency where we don't get enough of those happy hormone dopamine hits in our brain. So we go looking for it. And if we find a good source of dopamine, we may go a bit overboard and hyperfixate on it, like I did with history.
Okay.
Another thing with having ADHD is sometimes they engage in thrill-seeking behavior, which unfortunately can lead to things like abusive drugs and alcohol, and even participating in very dangerous sports.
And lots of people who don't have ADHD can do all of those things as well. So?
And yeah, that sounds a little bit familiar. So.
Yeah, doesn't it though? I mean, it's almost like a horoscope or something. Okay, tell you what, for the sake of argument, I'll stipulate. You have ADHD. You just do. You always have had ADHD. All right, great. And now you're married. You've had master's degrees. You've got a kid. It's frustrating, or the journey through life has been bumpy. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop on this. I really am. Thank you, Cryptic. This is not dope. Do you know what I mean? Is that a song lyric or something I'm just not getting? Up with hope, down with dope. Right? Thank you, Cryptic. You've successfully made me feel like I'm missing something, which is, I admit that's a low bar to hit, but appreciate it. Okay, so where is this going? Where is this going? You have described events and activities and difficulties that have befallen everyone in some way, shape, or form over the course of their life, probably, or anybody can relate to some aspect of this. So?
But after the master's in history, I thought, I gotta get a fucking job.
Are you a sailor? Even I don't swear this much during the show. This is a family show, or could be conceivably. I've had some of my viewers tell me about how their kids are watching this show. So straighten up, dude. Jeez, I got a reputation. Do I have a reputation? I guess I have some kind of reputation.
So I grinded my way through an MBA, and I worked in marketing for about a dozen years.
12 years in marketing. That's pretty focused.
Which allowed for a little bit of creative thought. Wasn't super exciting.
Yeah.
What I really wanted to do is I wanted to be a writer. And I'd really gotten into the fitness thing along the way. And I thought, I will become a fitness writer. That will be more exciting. It'll give me that dopamine hit that I need.
What about the history part of it? I mean, maybe this is just an aspect of his ADHD. Well, I got into this history class, and I was getting that, and I was fascinated, and I was enraptured, and I got a master's. Like, wow, you must have been really into history. What did you do with that? I went into marketing. Oh, okay. And then I'll become a fitness writer. Like, okay, well, I guess maybe you do have an attention deficiency, except that your attention lasts for several years at a stretch, which doesn't sound all that abnormal, honestly.
Didn't pay nearly as well, though. The girlfriend that I mentioned who wanted to go to medical school.
Yeah.
Well, she did. And we got married.
Okay.
And I highly recommend to every aspiring writer to marry a doctor.
Well, I'm presently then out of luck. Where are we going with this? Because I got to tell you, so far, my attention has become deficient in trying to figure out what direction we're taking.
Makes that career path a lot easier.
Yeah. It's a lot easier to become a writer if you can just be a mooch. Oh, man. Well, thanks for the advice. Yeah, marry rich, and then you can laze about and do something that doesn't make any money. I guess that's true. Thank you, Cryptic. Again, he kept saying dopamine. A bad joke if I had to explain it. I can't tell, lack of inflection. Dopamine, up with hope, down with dope, but not dopamine. Yeah, there's what was it? Satsu 2 Cents. He told me about a book he read that changed his focus and his understanding of his own. I'm not going to say he has ADHD, but just being able to focus on things and pay attention to things. It's called Atomic Habits. And he highly recommends this book, Atomic Habits. Now, that's not me being able to circle the sales pitch for product or service on the card. It just came to mind because I mentioned that book to somebody else the other day. And yeah, I remember when he was telling me about this book, he was talking about, different things give you dopamine and your mind, latches onto things and so on. But you can harness that habit or that distraction into something more productive. And now I don't know. This is not me recommending the book as in it solves problems or something, but it just came to mind suddenly that that is apparently something somebody has written a book about to try to help people focus this superpower, right? Which we're going to get to the superpower part. We're going to go away from the personal biography of mundanity and move into how ADHD is a superpower, right?
So I worked really hard to make my fitness articles interesting, funny, and engaging. Mm-hmm. And before long, I had columns in the Los Angeles Times and the Chicago Tribune that were being republished in major papers around the world. Great. So I didn't just have this creative outlet for my career, but I was getting some of that thrill seeking of being acknowledged for what it was that I created.
Yeah, okay.
So question is, are people with ADHD more likely to be creative?
I don't know. I guess you're about to tell us. Is that so? Now we're at the point of the stand-up essay, effectively. Is that it? Okay. Thank you so much, Keldrig. I spent all day listening to the Alex Murdaugh trial, and somehow this TED Talk is less focused and more boring than that. Man, the Alex Murdaugh thing. I cannot wait just to call back to Dave's Lemonade. I'm sure Dave will cover that at some point. The Alex Murdaugh. That whole family is just such a soap opera. I mean, what a bizarre chain of events involving that family, right? I've only peripherally been paying attention to it because I've got other things going on. But is it interesting, at least? Are there high points that you could see in a video in the future for some of the true crime guys out there? Maybe I'll bring that up for the next episode of the show where I talk to those guys about that or other things. Because what a weird family. Anyway, sorry, I got off track. I don't know why my attention is wandering. So are ADHD people more creative? All right. Well, here we go, guys. I guess this is the thesis of the talk.
And the research suggests, yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably. Oh, okay. The research suggests maybe. Okay. All right. Well, if that's the best they can do.
So growing up, I was always spaced out. You know, my mind was in the clouds. I was daydreaming, telling myself stories.
Yeah, me too.
And, people made fun of me for that. So I didn't really like it about myself.
Oh.
But divergent thinking, which is the ability to come up with a wide variety of ideas from a single starting point, is a critical component of creativity.
Yes, you're correct. In fact, I think that was something that was attributed to me when I was a kid. I've mentioned this before. When I was in elementary school, I ended up in the gifted class, and I never quite understood why. Like, there were other kids in the class that it made sense. There was something that they were doing. There was one kid who, he was literally designing his own airplanes when he was in second grade or something. And I'm not talking rinky-dink, crayon drawings or something. I'm talking about technical blueprints or something. He was doing this stuff. There was another kid who was really good at computers. And this is back in the olden days when computers were doing basic programming and things like that. And then there were kids that were obviously very artistically inclined. I never could figure out what my thing was. It was sort of like being in Professor X's school, but your superpower hadn't manifested yet, or at least not in a way that made any sense or someone could assess. And it wasn't until years after the fact I asked my parents, what did they tell you when they said, we're going to put your kid in this class? And they said, well, they tested you. And I remember them doing some little fill in the bubble tests and things like that. And they said that you understand things more quickly than other people. and you solve problems in more creative ways than other people. That's kind of the assessment I was given. So I can get that. Do I feel like I had ADHD that I couldn't focus on anything? I don't think so, which is why, okay, are ADHD people more creative than the average bear? Probably. But then do I have so does creativity indicate ADHD or vice versa? Does that really mean anything? The onus is on our speaker.
And people with ADHD, whose minds go all over the fucking map, are really good at divergent thinking. It's
like guaranteed?
That whole concept of thinking outside the box.
Uh-huh.
So I get weird thoughts, and I write some of those thoughts down, and some people like it, I guess.
Again, nothing you're describing so far sounds all that different from any number of other people I've encountered in life or heard from or otherwise. And very few of them either say or have been diagnosed with or would otherwise claim to have ADHD. So are you sure? Are you sure that this is not just a diagnosis that is just retroactively convenient? But again, that aside, even if I stipulate to everything you're saying, big question is, so what? What does this do for you? What does knowing this, if you know this to be true, what does this do for you? How is it a superpower? I mean, it sounds like you've been very successful. You've led a very eclectic career. You're married. You have a child, at least one. You've got a master's degree and everything else. So do you attribute your past successes to your ADHD?
Another connection between ADHD and creativity is how prior knowledge can constrain you. It acts as an obstacle. So I'll give you an example.
Okay. An example? Oh my God. Okay.
Imagine I tell someone to think of a alien creature from another world.
Okay, an alien creature from another world. Okay.
And they will likely think of something that, maybe has arms and legs and eyes and mouth, and it they might add some pointy ears or bumpy forehead Star Trek kind of shit.
Dude, okay, you really like your curse words. Yeah, well, if I was constrained by what prosthetics could I put on an actor on a regular basis for a television show, yes. But there's also, I don't know, the animal kingdom that we know of on our own planet, like deep sea creatures. Life is not always anthropomorphized. But then, I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
But it's still going to somewhat resemble something that we see here on Earth every day, because that prior knowledge is constraining their creativity. But people with ADHD are a lot better at just setting that obstacle of prior knowledge aside and coming up with some truly weird shit.
Jesus. Okay, so someone without ADHD is constrained to the Star Trek formula for creating alien life. Are you sure about that?
Unfortunately, the better they are at that type of creative problem solving, the more likely they are to have issues with distractibility and impulsivity.
Okay.
Speaking of being impulsive,
yes.
After about a decade of building up a solid reputation as a fitness writer, very suddenly on a whim, I said, I'm done with that shit. I'm writing history now.
Oh, so you fell back to your master's. Okay.
With swearing.
I can believe it.
Because I'm impulsive.
No, because you have no self-control. Maybe. Or maybe is that impulsive? Yeah, I guess maybe it is. Except that you're aware of it. And that doesn't really forgive you, I don't think.
And sometimes when I'm really excited or maybe pissed off, the best word to use is
doo-doo.
Cockwaffle.
Ay, caramba. Personally, if I'm going to use a swear word, I'm really going to get angry or something. I go for douche fuck. That's kind of my catch-all. Like if I'm in the car with my sister and somebody cuts us off or somebody does something stupid or whatever, douche fuck is usually my go-to.
So That transition happened in 2020.
Okay.
If you remember anything about that year, it was a fucktacular shitnado of ass.
I just had flashbacks to the angry video game nerd for some reason. I can't imagine why. Dude, okay. Honestly, your biography, your career path, whatever. This is getting frustrating. And if this is supposed to be, again, reflective of the whole ADHD process, if I am watching his mind on parade on stage, and that's supposed to tell me something about this entire deal, okay, so we've got basically a glorified performance artist here. But either way, as a presentation, I'm getting frustrated because I can pay attention to things quite a while. You know, I can pay very close attention to things. But you have to maintain my interest, and you have to at least give me an inkling of where you're going. I don't know what the point of this is yet, and you're over 3/4 of the way through your talk.
It's just, and I was stressed out, but I was a writing machine. I was cranking out. I was publishing a sweary-filled history story every single day. And very quickly it took off. It was being read by millions of people.
Brag, brag, brag. Great. And
not only that, I started making a lot of money.
Oh, brag, brag, brag. Okay, so you don't have to mooch off your doctor wife anymore. And
so you would think that I would be happy.
No. I don't think that success equates to happiness inherently. Anyone who has lived any portion of life probably knows that. But okay, tell me something more about your grand adventure.
But no, I was a ball of anxiety.
Oh my God, a creative person who's a writer being anxious and having anxiety. What's that like?
Heart sometimes would just start pounding for no reason.
Yeah.
Tightness in my chest, tingling skin, trouble sleeping.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it at the time, but ADHD's most common comorbidity is anxiety.
Maybe I do have ADHD. Maybe that's been my curse my entire life, because I had anxiety disorder, still have it. You know, it was worse during my 20s. I've hopefully managed it at this point, but gosh, maybe I have it too. But let's pretend that I do. Let's just pretend. So what?
So what I do?
I don't know.
Well, I worked harder.
Oh.
Not just on the writing, but on the promotion of my writing, on selling, building up my social media, sell more books, sell more paid subscriptions, make more money.
Yeah.
And
because you have a family to support when you're not mooching off of your doctor wife and stuff. Okay.
And yeah, that didn't help. That actually made things worse.
Okay, well, if nothing else, I'm going to circle sales pitch for product or service, because this is so far entirely self-promotive. It's not trying to break down like what it is to manage life with ADHD, or, you know, providing, like, if somebody said, hey, Scribe, you deal with anxiety disorder most of your life. What did you do to manage that and still maintain relationships, a job, etc.? And I could say, oh, okay, well, this is what I did. Maybe it could work for you, maybe not. But here's the tools I could provide, something, da-da-da-da-da. And then, you know, relaying some biographical examples would make sense as long as there was a utility to my going to the trouble. But so far, I haven't heard a lick of what does this have to do with anything. Wow, you're really successful despite this impediment, I guess. I don't know. I'm also going to circle Play's victim because he's retroactively attributing a bunch of things that can happen to anybody, ADHD or not, as though he were in some kind of unique position or something, which, piecemeal speaking, he's not. Anyway.
And then I read some research that really was a light bulb moment for me. And that is, compared to people who don't have it, people with ADHD who are engaged in a creative effort will work at it more harder if there is if they're competing for a reward.
Oh, gosh. You mean having an incentive to lead you towards working harder for something? Yeah, no. Yeah, Skinner's rats didn't show that was, sort of inherent to creatures in general or anything. Pavlov's dogs and so on. Oh, boy, there's the bell. Food's coming. Oh, boy, if I hit this button, the food comes out. Why do people take jobs? Why do people take jobs, right? I mean, why do people go to work every day, whether they like it or not? Oh, yeah, there's a paycheck at the end of the rainbow. Oh, imagine that. If I have a creative mind and there's a reward at the end, I can if I have a deadline. This is my thing. I work so much better when I have either a deadline or some kind of obligation hanging over my head to spur me on to write something, to create something. This is why the ads I used to do, the custom ads on Lords of the Night, I made sure every day that I got those done before the next show where I was broadcasting, because A, someone had paid me money to do this, and so this is the thing I had to do, and B, I had to make sure that it was as good a quality as I could provide in exchange for that generosity. And I always got them in on time. If for some reason I couldn't fulfill it or I was late or something, I felt terrible, and that's what eventually led to my burnout on the whole thing, is I had 12, 15 of these things to try to write up between, Tuesday and Thursday. And I just, lost my mind trying to come up with 15 original ideas and 3 paragraphs of script for each one and so on. But I otherwise wouldn't have had those experiences and not thought to write those things without that incentive. Yes. It is much easier sometimes to have a deadline or an incentive or a reward when trying to complete something creative or finish a project, if you can believe it. And
so I was competing for the reward of making more and more money.
Yeah.
And I was driving myself fucking crazy.
Oh my God.
So I needed to get to the root cause of my anxiety. So I started doing meth.
Part of me wants to laugh at that as it's a joke, I hope, but I'm not quite sure. Did we just take a really dark turn? Or is this a joke? I don't know. What do you guys say? Okay. So Faithless, hold on. Faithless comes up with a good guess here. Ritalin? Advocate did he say meth or math? He said meth. Okay. So meth, you say, or Ritalin?
I got diagnosed with moderate ADHD, and I was given a prescription for Ritalin.
Good job, Faithless. Okay, so went down a dark turn. If you saw, or if you, are you still on Ritalin? Or was it something like they prescribed you something and after the fact you found out what it was and now you're off it?
And Ritalin, the generic name is methylphenidate. So I looked and I said, oh, cool, I'm doing meth now. My wife, the doctor, said, you're not doing meth.
As in, she didn't let you take the medication, or she was trying to convince you that you weren't actually taking meth?
She explained that methyl is something to do with a carbon atom bonded to hydrogen atoms. I got distracted. I kind of forgot what she was saying after that.
That sounds like most marriages.
Ritalin is a stimulant, though. And
no kidding.
It's a stimulant that helps me not get so distracted, like I just did.
Wow, it seems to be really working. Where are we going?
So there's a joke about people with ADHD that we're so easily distractible that, we may be in the middle of telling a story and a squirrel will go by and we'll be, oh, squirrel. It's not the best analogy because, come on, if a squirrel ran across the stage right now, tell me you wouldn't be distracted by it. Anyway. I don't take Ritalin to write. I take it to stop writing. I will work for 5 or 6 hours in the morning, then pop a pill, and then step away. Stop obsessing over my need to make more money.
Is there, and I mean this sincerely, I'm not being facetious. Is there any way you could do that of your own self-control and willpower absent the medication? I mean, now that you've recognized, here's something that, just another anecdote about anxiety. As far as we can tell within my family, my father, for the better part of his life and my growing up certainly, suffered from the same kind of anxiety disorder that both myself and my sister eventually developed as we grew up. The problem was my father didn't have the wherewithal or the knowledge that what he was experiencing was a disorder. And instead, he thought, and had no other reason to think otherwise, that how he was reacting and how he was behaving was just the way he was. And this, of course, caused a vicious circle inside of himself where he was reacting in ways that he knew were out of bounds, but they just kept coming. And so he sort of assumed this was his personality, and he became more insular. Hold on, it was a bad situation. Eventually, later on in life, he was able to get some help for that when it was acknowledged that he was having a problem that was not him, that he didn't have any control over. Now, in my case, fortunately, since I lived most of my life up until my early 20s as quote unquote relatively normal, and then one day things just started crashing down on me, like I sent an email with a misspelling and then the world was feeling like it was coming apart. And my rational brain knew something irrational was taking place. And so I always had that fallback of knowing that there was a separation, right, between my rational self and whatever was causing me to feel these things against my will. All right. And that helped me manage it, because most of the time my rational brain could at least parse out, this is a situation where you're feeling and acting irrationally or thinking irrationally about something that's beyond proportionality. And so I could sort of contain it, not make it go away. It was never about making it go away, but just manage it. And so that foreknowledge, so that self-awareness helped me move through the world in spite of the insanity going on behind the scenes in my brain. Okay. And I took, and still to this day, take a certain measure of pride in the fact that I was able to maintain relationships, a career, and function without any medication, right? Without doing anything else. Now, it was not an enjoyable life. That's the problem. I was able to manage it. I was able to move through the world and still function and still take care of myself and everything, but it was not fun. Eventually, I got to a point where I was just not enjoying life. I was functional. I was managing, but perpetually managing is terrible. So for a period of time, I did end up going and taking some medication, very light medication. And fortunately, in my case, it was like a magic bullet. I don't have any other description for it. The static, the stress, the insanity of it all, the dial was turned all the way down. I still knew it was there. It still spiked from time to time, but it was otherwise effectively eliminated. I was very lucky. Not everybody can say that. And only in the last couple of years, did I stop taking the medication because it felt like maybe I didn't need it anymore. And as of this recording, at least, I feel like I did before it all started in my 20s. So maybe I've trained my brain. Maybe it was a passing phase. Either way, I'm in good shape, thankfully. But now that our speaker, and I'm just talking sort of in the abstract here, if our speaker has the wherewithal and the knowledge of himself and everything, that he gets obsessive and then he writes for 2 hours or whatever, and then he takes a pill and walks away, instead of a pill, why not an alarm clock? Why not train yourself out of bad habits? Even if they're difficult to overcome, bad habits, even if you don't have a lot of control because it's a part of some complex or something, why not take a more healthful and self-empowering route than fall back to medication if you don't have to? And this is not me going like Tom Cruise, medication is a myth or something or any of that. I'm just saying that if you don't have to, why do you, you know?
And go do other things like exercise and shower and eat. But, so I've struggled because of ADHD, and
Is it though?
medication helps me struggle less.
Okay, I understand.
Okay. I said I was always spaced out, and it was something that I didn't like about myself.
Yeah.
Now I have a little bit of a different perspective because,
Uh-huh.
it's not right for me to say that I'm grateful for having ADHD. I'm not. It's kind of a creative superpower with a load of anxiety, kryptonite.
Uh-huh.
But I am living a great life right now, and it may be due, at least in small part, to having ADHD.
It may be due in small part. Okay, so far you cited, without actual attribution, a study that said probably ADHD means more creativity. And now maybe in some small part, why are we here? What is the purpose of this?
However, I realize I'm very lucky. Most people with ADHD are not anywhere near as lucky as I am. So,
well, they didn't marry rich necessarily. So
I think we need to start thinking about, things beyond medication, what we can do for the next generation of kids growing up with ADHD, looking at different teaching and learning styles.
Okay, and why didn't you make that the subject of your talk? We're at the end of your talk. Why didn't you? Good gravy. I mean, that would have been a great angle for this. Like most people these days get diagnosed with ADHD when they're very young and they get put on Ritalin and da-da-da-da-da. Well, I wasn't diagnosed until I was in my, I'll guess, like late 30s or something. I don't know. And as a consequence, I have a perspective on my life to this point that kids wouldn't have. And I've lived a whole life with ADHD. And let's talk about things that we could do for kids or for people that are diagnosed that don't have to do with medication. What have I learned? What tools did I come up with without knowing about ADHD over the course of my life to make this work for me, and so on and so on? Why couldn't you talk about that? Why did we need the biography like this or presented so? Now I'm just frustrated, if you can believe it.
To help them be their best and most creative selves. And maybe by doing that, we can make the world not just a better place, but a more creative one, too. Thank you so much.
God, this is right up there with last week's. Boy, the Superpowers TEDx's. I remember, this is the only dividing line as to what I'm picking these out for. They have to have the word superpower in the title, and it has to be something, I don't know, it just has to have superpower in the title. I think next week I'm going to be doing, being a con man is my superpower or something. It's just going to be great. But does superpower then mean that I'm going to drone on for 12 minutes and not tell the audience anything that they couldn't figure out on their own? What use was this? This could have been so much better as a let's imagine, if we might, some other ways in which to manage or focus when it comes to people with ADHD. Instead of getting kids hooked on Ritalin, which is a form of meth, it's a stimulant. You want to get your kids hooked on stimulants any more than, soda pop and everything? Let's do this instead, right? How did you, this is what I'd ask the speaker, how did you leverage your attention span now that you know, and again, I'm stipulating, now that you know you have ADHD, how did you leverage your attention span in order to achieve a master's degree? What little tricks or tips or habits did you develop in order to achieve that goal? Right? I mean, that takes some focus, right? What was it about that history class that overcame your distractions? Right? Or what was it about that teacher's teaching style that caused you to focus? Was it just some kind of reward thing at the end? Was that all you needed? Why couldn't you explore that more? I mean, there's all these hints at things that could have been very educational or at least thoughtful in this conversation, and we never went there. Consequently, let's go to the bingo card because we can discuss some of those as we go. All right, so let me make sure the bingo card is appropriately zoomed in on here. Is that, that's good. Okay. So the bingo card, save that. refresh this, and there we go. All right, so this is the bingo card as I have it right now. I'm going to go over it myself once to review ourselves on that. And if you have any arguments for squares to be circled as we go, please hold on to them, and I'll get to you momentarily. Anecdote that probably never happened. Nothing he said in the course of his story sounded illegitimate or like too good to be true. So I can't say that I heard an anecdote that was like, and there was even like kind of a sidewise self-deprecating thing about marrying his rich wife. So I can believe it. Self-vilification or wretchedness. Yes, because he kept, maybe retrospectively he forgives himself, but he was calling himself, a loser and couldn't do this, that, and the other, and I was terrible, and so sure, why not? It's kind of self-vilification or wretchedness. Systemic institutional, not really. You never brought that up. Weightless example, yeah, the entire talk, in a way. His life story without using it to educate, or on reflection that now he knows that this makes more sense, or maybe this is something somebody else could. Word salad, I can't say there was anything that was just verbal detritus coming out of him. So, not that I think. Leaves out vital context. Yeah, like I said, why were you able to focus on history? What was it about it? What was it about that teacher's teaching style? Why were you able to achieve all those goals if you couldn't focus on anything? I mean, a master's in history, I think that takes a certain level of attention. That wasn't a master's in women's studies or something. So, collectivize his own demographic. Yes, in the sense that he was, sort of grouping himself in with people, quote unquote, who have ADHD. That's effectively a demographic, so I'll go for that one. White supremacy, never brought up race at all. A list, as far as I can recall, he never made a formal list as part of his presentation. Like, here are 3 ways you can, or something like that, which actually would have been appreciated. Privilege, well, rich wife. Rich wife. I'm going to go for rich wife. I get to write and not make any money for a while because I have a rich wife. Attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase. I didn't hear anything new that I know of. Wage gap. Yes, between himself and his wife when he was writing and she was a doctor. I know I'm stretching a little bit, but man, this was a pretty thin presentation. Patriarchy. No. Feminism. No, I never brought up the battle of the sexes in any particular way. Mind reading assumes motives. The thing is he kept hedging things like probably, maybe. I could stretch. I don't know if it's I'm not going to do it because it might be too much of a stretch. That in retrospect, he's assuming motives and things with this late life diagnosis of his own actions. I don't know. You tell me if that's too much. Diversity, equity, and inclusion never came up. Marginalization. In the sense that, him being bullied as a kid, sort of, but I don't know if that's, does that count? I'll let it sit for a minute. Argumentative non sequitur. Again, like his, I made a bunch of money. I was very successful. So what? What does that have to do with ADHD? I like to write sports stuff for fitness things and okay. Contradicts own point or argument. What was his argument? What was the argument? Did he contradict anything? Not achieving or manifesting an argument doesn't necessarily mean a contradiction of an argument. I don't know. My brain's a little mushy right now. Benevolent condescension. No, the guy didn't come across as superior at all, and he was very self-deprecating, and I didn't feel like I was being talked down to so much, but there was sort of a sense of, duh, with some things and like, oh, can you imagine life being difficult? Or like, not knowing what to do with yourself or changing careers or something like that. Okay. And lastly, microaggressions, unconscious bias. Unconscious bias. No. Trying to think of an applicable part of the presentation, but nothing's coming to mind. Honestly, he droned on about so many things about himself that I don't know that there's a lot there, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to hand it over to you guys. If you have arguments for squares to be circled, please put them in the chat now. And we'll see if we can get a bingo out of this, maybe. P Square Peon, not comparing y'all since he is promoting increasing medications for kids, but the part where Scribe was against medicine, promoting more self-improvement was meh. My thing, promoting more self-improvement, I'm not against medicine. I was wary of medicine. It was pride. It was it was a fear that I would become dependent on something and it would change my attitude, behavior, and so on. I was more interested in trying to handle it myself. It was my toxic masculinity talking, actually. So no, I'm not against medicine. Medicine improved my life. That's the thing. I spent the better part of my 20s and most of my 30s managing it. And then at a certain point, I just couldn't argue against needing help. And so I got help. And I may be a unique case. I don't know, but it worked for me very well for several years. And relatively recently, I weaned myself off of it just to see what would happen. Would it come roaring back? And would I need medication again? If I needed it, I would get it. Thankfully, so far, I've been doing all right. So I'm not, like I said, don't get me wrong. I'm not arguing against medication. But I get concerned when I hear stories about parents specifically falling back to medication first, right? There's a documentary from PBS Frontline from many years ago, which kind of covers this, called The Medicated Child. And it goes back and forth on the subject of, diagnosing children with mental disorders or attention disorders at very young age and getting them hooked on medication as a cure-all. And when I saw that and, sort of thinking about it for myself, I wanted to at least see, could I find a way to manage this on my own? I know, and I have had friends and family members who are seriously plagued with mental illness. And there was no way that they could operate without medical treatment of one kind or another. So just so there's no confusion, this was not an anti-medicine medication rant on my part. It was just me talking about my experience. That's all. Anyway, sorry to go off on that, but I don't want there to be any confusion on it. If you have any other questions for me on my experience, I'm more than happy to talk about it, obviously. Blakester, so should I do a presentation called Seizures Are the Best Chick Magnet? TEDx will take all comers, as we've seen. D5280, a lot of TED Talks would have been better given in a private room in front of a therapist. It is true, and I've said this many times in the past on these shows, oftentimes what we are witnessing on a TEDx talk or even a TED Talk is a stage that is the embodiment of the individual's own mind. You can see how their mind is working as they play it on stage, more so than it is educational. It says more about the person than it does about the subject oftentimes. Let's see. Yvonne Solomon, a rich wife, and he said he knows some people with ADHD aren't as lucky as him. Yeah, that's privilege. That is, at least in the abstract. Yeah, that is for privilege. Let's see. Just a mumbo jumbo of stories. It was a biography with no point, except to say that, okay, granted he has ADHD, he's led a very successful life, and yet he's still not fulfilled. Welcome to life, I guess. I don't know. Advocast Diabli, is ADHD contagious? Because I think I caught it from this talk. Yeah, I mean, it didn't hold my attention. Well, I mean, it held my attention because I'm doing a show. So, I get in that sense. Q Continuum. His argument was ADHD and creativity is a superpower with Kryptonite. Well, yeah, I get the title, right? But I never got the superpower part. How did it help him? I mean, he was attributing his creativity to it, right? But he didn't give us any examples, really, except, I was in marketing, and that's kind of creative. and I read about fitness. Okay. Now, I understand what the argument was, I guess. Did he contradict his own point or argument? I mean, not fulfilling the promise of the title, is that a contradiction? He contradicted his argument because that presentation was not created. The presentation stood in contrast to the claim of the title. Yeah, you know what? I like that. I actually that's good. That's good. So Q Continuum. I'm going with that. That's a good one. That actually works. That works for me. That works for me. And I read your name, Q Continuum. The first thing I think of when I think about Q is the one mystery that they never explained. The first time that he meets Guinan, and she like raises his hands at him, and he gets ready to like raise his hands back. Like what was going on there? I know that's been a part of speculation. Maybe they explained it in some novel or something somewhere, what Guinan was about to do, or what Q knew about her people or something. I bet there's a novel. I bet there's a Star Trek paperback somewhere that goes through all of that. But that's the first thing I always think of when it comes to Q, as far as just like that image of them holding their fingertips of each other, just like what's about to happen. Let's see. P Square Peon, didn't mean that you were against it, just that the phrasing towards the end seemed close enough. I wanted you to address it. Appreciate your tone. Oh, that's fine. No, I get it. Like I say, God knows how many times I've made, sidewise comments on streams and things that might be misinterpreted. I'm happy to clarify it. And just as well for preamble, I'm not a doctor. I have my experience to speak from. I can't speak for anybody else. And like I say, my best friend for many, many years suffered from bipolar disorder and a whole bunch of other things, and things inflicted upon her by childhood experiences. And she decidedly needed something beyond, self-help or willpower or something to manage. And it was obvious. And I didn't begrudge her that. Obviously, I wished she didn't need it. And she was actually the reason why I eventually was convinced to go on medication. I was having a conversation with her about my struggles with anxiety and everything. And she said, well, why don't you go to a psychiatrist and get something for it? And I said something to the effect of my concern with going on medication has always been that I'm not going to be me, that I'm not going to be someone that I would like, et cetera, et cetera. And she said, and I'm paraphrasing, well, I've been on medication the entire time you've known me. Am I not me? Am I not a legitimate version of myself because I'm on medication for something I don't have any control over? And just with that conversation, she defeated my argument. And it's just, I kind of went, I'm not living, I'm managing. And that's not fun. And I need some help beyond whatever I'm doing. I mean, like I say, I still credit myself as much as I can for being able to be as successful overall as I was over those years, but it wasn't enjoyable. There was always a weight. There was always an albatross around my neck throughout everything I did in life. And fortunately, like I say, I got very luckily a very mild, what is it? Antidepressant. That's the word I'm looking for. Very mild, really changed everything around. And I was very fortunate for that. But my experience is not necessarily everybody else's. So anyway, moving on. Keldrig, it's perfectly sensible to be wary of medicine, in my opinion. Medicine shouldn't be the default, and I think it should only be used where it is needed, especially when it affects personality. Yeah, and most especially, unless, and again, this is just my personal opinion, when it comes to dealing with children. Like, my child is rambunctious. They're obviously acting out of sorts. I need to medicate them. I'm like, It reminds me of a story from a documentary on NPR many years ago called My Lobotomy. And it was about a guy telling the story about how when he was a kid, because he was quote unquote rambunctious and wouldn't behave or whatever, his parents were convinced, I should say, that he'd be lobotomized, like the old ice pick lobotomy. Now, he was fortunate in the sense that he had a lobotomy and did not become a vegetable zombie. He somehow lucked out, but he'll never know what happened to him or what the effects were because it was so long ago. And by the time it became obvious that something was wrong, or He didn't really think about it. He was an older man. But that's what I get wary of when it comes to medicating issues, especially when you're in your developmental years. That was always my major concern more than anything else, is just sort of like with what we're seeing lately with, trans activism and child transitions and things like, anyway. Any other arguments for squares to be circled? Faithless, he claims to be hyperactive and has to dope up to turn it off. Isn't that weird? Now, I don't know how it works, but yeah, a stimulant is going to make you stop behaving in an energetic way or something, a hyper way. Yeah, that seems odd. But then I never really understood the whole idea behind how that's supposed to work, right? I'm not a doctor. So if somebody knows the mechanisms, by all means, put it in the chat or in the comments. Yvonne Solomon, for DEI systemic. What the heck is it? Okay, my brain's going sideways. He said he wanted to make the world more creative. Does that mean he wants more people diagnosed with ADHD, or ADHD people need better resources? Couldn't tell you. I'd be mind reading assumes motives then as well. I don't think that reaches the threshold of systemic. Usually systemic, like systemic racism, systemic sexism, something about how, yeah, I mean, maybe if he'd gone more into the psychological or psychiatric industry, let's say, when it comes to treatment for it or something, maybe, but he didn't go there either. It was just me all the time. I'm just spitballing. No, I get it. That's mostly what I do. He's not a doctor, folks. I just want to say, I got to give my disclaimers as well. Not financial advice, not a financial advisor. Just in case. Somebody wants to know about my personal experience with medication for anxiety, I will give it all day and tell you still, I'm not a doctor. Thank you, Kiefer Dam. He said school system. Does that count as systemic? Do I really want to lower the bar that much? Not, no. Even for a non-bingo square, I think that'd be reaching. P square again. Basically, also not a doctor. Their hyperactivity is caused by their brain always screaming to do something else. If we just do another thing, I can make the happy chemical. Yeah, I think that's part of the lesson in that book that Satsu 2 Cents was talking about, Atomic Habits. It's sort of like, finding those things that give you that dopamine hit, and then just finding a way to repeat those or work those into other more productive ends. I think that's the lesson of the book. Again, I haven't read the book. Miranda Stone, welcome. Miranda, the I don't know what you want to call it, the grand poobah, it felt like, of Dave's Lemonade. Paradoxical drug reactions. Yeah, maybe that's it. Again, you take, something that seems like it would do the opposite of what you're trying to do, and then it does what you want it to do. I don't know. I mean, Miranda, maybe are you a doctor? Are you married to a writer by any chance? All right. Last call, guys. Any other arguments for squares to be circled? This is a relatively short stream because our speaker didn't really say anything all that compelling, unfortunately. It was just his own biography sprinkled with hints of what could have been a much more interesting and rich talk. But unfortunately, I guess he got distracted. Also, if nothing else, this TEDx talk probably qualifies as the most swear word laden TED talk I've ever watched. I guess if I have to give it credit for something, that's the credit I can give it. That's about it. P square. So by giving a stimulant, the brain gets the happy chemical, so it doesn't have to be constantly screaming to do something else. For people with acute ADHD, it is really self-destructive. With moderate cases, it's just something that should be coped with. In your opinion, not being a doctor. Yes. Okay. I get it. Oh, in my opinion, OFC. What's OFC again? Sometimes I used to know these abbreviations. Q continuum. The presentation was word salad, meaning it has lots of words with no substance. You know what? I will grant you that one I'll give you that. That's true. That's good. I like that. That works. That works for me. And lastly, I think Mike R. Thank you so much. His swear word term for 2020, new buzzword. Have I heard that before? Cockwaffle. Is that, he didn't make that up though, right? Somebody else has used that, right? Because that's not a new buzzword buzz phrase. It's like something I like to call, right? Yeah, abdicatus, not a new word. I say it. And given how old you are, I don't know how old you are, but faithless twat waffle is called. That's true. I've heard that before, but I don't know that I'd want to give him credit for something like that. Miranda Stone, I am not a doctor or married. I was responding to the comment about why the drugs can sometimes do that. No, I know. I was just kidding. I was just joking. And P Square gave a good summary of that logic. So yes, feeding the brain what it wants so that it can move on to something else and be satisfied. I don't know if that's necessarily a healthy way to go about it, but then again, I'm not a doctor. It's the swear word I'm not a doctor stream. But with that, everybody, I think I'm going to call it there. Yeah, a very thin presentation. Didn't really convince me it was a superpower necessarily, or play up the advantages to it, or make, at least let's put it this way, did not make a good argument that there was an advantage to it. It seemed a lot more like this is a detriment and I just kind of worked through having it. How's that a superpower? Not exactly sure. But either way, everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Appreciate it. Remember, the Sunday stream will come on this Sunday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, where I'll talk about something. Not sure yet. I usually decide on that the Saturday before. Also, since I already gave it away anyway, March 11th, Saturday, March 11th, currently scheduled for 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, will be the third episode of Living on Borrowed Crime. Currently scheduled guests, Dave's Lemonade and Stay Awake. If you're not aware of Stay Awake, look up Stay Awake Crime on YouTube and check out his channel with a whole bunch of really interesting true crime stories. And as well, if you're not aware of Dave's Lemonade, same routine, look up Dave's Lemonade on YouTube and check them out. And if you like their stuff, be sure to hit the like button. Same for me, if you happen to like it. That'd be nice too. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved and so contributory. Is that a word? Contributory? Contributive? So participatory. And so nice that you have very little to do. Everybody who donated, either to myself or to the fundraisers pinned to the top of the chat box, thank you guys so very, very much for your generosity. I really do appreciate it. Hope you all have a good rest of your Thursday. Hope your Friday is nice. A nice end to the week. I hope your weekend is fun as well. I hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.